it's very unfortunate that we live in a country, by and large, that doesn't speak about a lot of things that happen, where we have a lot of women who over the years have been abused physically, emotionally, verbally, and they don't speak about it because, well, our community and our society doesn't facilitate those sorts of conversations. And as we know, we have a lot of men who have been hurt, and they're only hurting people because that's what they've learned to do. Today we have a guest with us who's speaking out about her story and is trying to change the narrative for a lot of other women who are coming after her. And so I have the beautiful, talented mother of three who looks like she hasn't even had one. Yes. Olamide, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
How's business?
Very well.
You know I'm a fan of Iconola. That was my first, you were my first man.
Yes.
How you doing?
Very well.
Good.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
You look fine. Jesus, I don't even want to start. So how's it been since, well, everybody knows about, by now, you know, a lot of people, I was looking at the numbers yesterday, because I actually just watched it for the first time last night, about 1 a.m.
A lot of people are scared to watch it.
Yes, because it's well, it depends on how you receive those kinds of information.
I guess.
Yes, I'm very mentally visual, so I'm literally seeing things as you're saying it.
Yeah, even people that are not so visual have actually called me up to say that it just paints that picture. And for me, I think it was very natural for me to say this story because it's something I went through. So it's something that happened a long time ago, and I feel like I've gone past it. So I didn't really even at that point see the weight of it. It wasn't until about 2-3 days after that I realized like, okay, this is heavy for people. In fact, heavy for me. I remember calling my sister up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I was just literally crying on the phone saying, I've been through a lot actually.
Yeah, you have been through a lot. So for people who might not have seen these videos, Olamide was married for 7 years and endured a lot of physical abuse from her ex-husband, and talked about, you know, some of the actual occurrences and events even within the marriage. So there's a couple, I don't want to dwell on that. There's a couple of things that I actually want to find out, because I think there are a lot of women who, by and large, you hear people say in society, oh, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? Then there's the perspective of the church where God hates divorce, so you can't leave the marriage. And then there's people like, oh, but are they supposed to die in the marriage? So there's that debate back and forth.
There's many questions. Is why didn't you leave, and why didn't you leave earlier? So to tackle the first question is, you don't leave because you feel like there's hope. And the hope is such a spiritual thing. At what point do you actually give up the hope? You know, for me, I would say the first few issues that we had, I actually didn't even think came from us. I thought it was coming from outside forces, because you're Nigerian, so no matter how educated you are, no matter how exposed you are, there's still this whole spiritual forces are against you.
From your father's side.
Yes, from your mother's side. So that was something for me to look at in the beginning. It wasn't until I started researching the Bible about divorce and researching about spiritual influences that I realized that we're not taking responsibility for what we are actually doing.
True.
So when somebody steals, they say, I can speak Yoruba.
Yoruba.
If they steal, they say it's issue. It's almost like, what do you want to be responsible for? You know. So for me, I started thinking about it, and I want to be responsible and say, what am I doing wrong? What's he doing wrong? If for real.
For real.
So I think that was, I just eventually had to leave because I didn't want to be part of, even if there's outside forces on him, I didn't want it to affect me. So I wanted to take responsibility for myself. The second question is, why that long? Why go through so many bad experiences before you give up. I think the way I want to say it in Yoruba is, mo fẹ́ fọwọ́ sọ̀yà. I did my best.
Yeah.
And I tried my best, and I was the best wife and mother
So
I
that
could
when
be
they look
there.
at the situation,
So-
like, I know she tried. She
So
stayed.
if I come out of it, I know that I tried. I just couldn't endure more than that. And I really, at that point, stopped seeing that change was possible.
Okay, so many things. Really quickly, at any point, did your children see any of that? Did they ever see an episode?
Yes, but my kids were young. So when I left, my first was 6.
Okay.
They did. The youngest, I would imagine, heard noises or something, but he doesn't remember us at all being married. He doesn't remember like mommy and daddy being together. You know, some of the conversations we've had are about, mommy, I don't have a mommy and daddy. I was like, you did, you
just
and you still do. They just don't live together. You know, but the older ones, I think, did experience it. I know that it's part of their journey as well in life and for their own growth, spiritually and emotional growth. And hopefully, if it tries to churn up its head in the future, at least I feel like we're all equipped to be able to help them. And by doing this also, I feel like we're beginning to set a standard for the next generation. This is not okay. This is not something that you have to succumb to. So it's not that there's not pain in the world, but you don't have to keep giving it and perpetuating it over and over again.
And one of the reasons why I asked that question is, we know that people who hurt other people have been hurt because that's how they've learned to cope. And because people don't talk about things, so they bottle things up on the inside and infest it and spills out, and they have very unhealthy ways of, expressing their hurt. So my thing is, with the boys, to make sure that mentally, even yourself, because there's the physical abuse, there's the scars and all of that, and then there's the mental part of it of, I know a lot of women who talk about they felt like they were not good enough because of the things that were said to them. So how did you deal with all of that to get to where you are now?
I'd say 2 things. The first thing is the devil is a liar. So I read my Bible and I understand my Bible in simple English. It's not deep for me anymore. So the devil is a liar. So anything that threatens my mental state against the truth that I know that God speaks to my life is the devil.
Oh, just simple.
It's just simple. So I look at it in such a way, if I'm too worried about the past or the future, it's still a lie, because there's nothing like the past or the future. It's just right now and right here. So am I a good person now? Am I reacting properly now? Am I giving the right reaction or
you're not
speech?
living based on the past.
Yes, it's just now and now and now. And for every now you have, you're building a good life. So I remember when I was 17 and I was thinking about, this might be the man I will marry because of so and so things. The issue in my head was, how am I going to be faithful to this person for the rest of my life? And something in my head said, be faithful every day today. And then it adds up. So that's one of the thinkings that I have. Like, if you keep being good today, every day, today, then you're a good person all through the length of your life. Yeah. So it's easy.
And there's so many things. Before the first episode, before you got married, that was 2 years before you got married, I believe.
Yes.
The first time he ever hit you. Before that, because you'd been together since you were 17.
Yes.
Had you ever seen him be that way to any other person that you might have been like, hey, where's this coming from?
I want to be honest to say that certain things rub me off the wrong way, but nothing that I would feel like, run.
Yeah.
And if it said run, I probably wasn't listening or hearing it. It was maybe how you are to the gates man. I mean, sometimes it seems like you're being a bit too sensitive. How you are to one of your friends that said something, but we live in a society that tells boys to be macho.
Macho, yeah.
So in fact, you kind of admire it, like, oh, my boyfriend is macho.
He's the man.
Yeah, but I think if you can see that the intention is not coming from a good place, so that's where I would say, especially for women, you need to listen to your intuition. So you need to listen to your mind and your gut feeling about it. I remember that there was a day that I just I was just crying the whole day because I was like, I want to break up with this guy. And my friend kept saying, what did he do? I said, nothing. I just don't know.
Just knew it.
But I feel like my spirit knew that something might be wrong. and I just wasn't paying attention. The other thing that I feel like was flattering to me was possessiveness. So it came to me more like he likes me. He wants to know what I'm doing, where I am.
That he was always checking up and being so.
Yes, like if I went somewhere, somebody saw me, I would know immediately that he knew the person saw me. Because he would be like, oh, so and so saw you out today. And because I'm such an honest person, I didn't think that it was something to lie about.
So you
I'd
just...
be like, oh yeah, I went somewhere, and he would be like, oh, okay, because he knows. It didn't freak me out because I would say, once again, you're paying attention to the wrong things, or you're not listening to your gut instincts. So there's a fine line between somebody loving you the right way and somebody loving you the wrong way. So to me, I thought it was, oh, really like me. I didn't think it was like weird. Even I'll be honest with you, even after I left the marriage, a lot of people still said, oh, it's because he loves you so much. It's because he loves you so much because he still wants to be a part of your life. And to me, I'm like, no, this, and that's why I said the devil is a liar. This is not love. This had fear written all over it. It had all kinds of other things written on it. So I had to be honest with myself. Like, what does the word of God say about even love? You know, and there's a whole chapter in the Bible.
You get the actual description of what it should be.
Yes, don't sugarcoat it. Don't try and think there's anything deeper. When they say love is not jealous, simple.
It's not. Just not.
So, you know, when they say love is accepting somebody as they are. So even if I was sharp-mouthed and, you know, I was whatever I was, if you really like me, you like me for who I was, and you're able to accommodate me.
You know, it's so interesting when you say that, because yesterday when I was watching it, I said to myself, even if, you know, there were little whatevers, my thing is, the response is not hitting someone. Do you know what I'm saying?
They say that the punishment is different from the sin. So, I mean, you don't kill a person because they took your phone. To me, it just doesn't commensurate the sin.
Exactly.
So, but like I would say again, which is the other question I know that a lot of people are asking, because I've heard a lot of people say things, oh, his version of the story is this and that. I'm like, well, you can bring the person here and let's
talk now.
So, Molly, for also, that I was a good wife. You know, I tried to walk on eggshells around whatever I thought would be upsetting. You know, there are things that I feel like I can't change about myself. I'm not very hospitable. I forget things when I'm busy. So in terms of maybe your lunch is not made, not going to remember. Can we get it made? Like those things to me had easier solutions than fighting.
True.
So there's just so many things now that I don't see the point. Like, why are we arguing over Nkokonti turning? Sorry, I speak Yoruba a lot. I feel like a bushman.
Because I speak Yoruba a lot, so I'm following you. Don't worry.
I hope everybody can follow.
There'll be translations, don't worry.
So okay. I just feel like it's not the same as someone who is hell-bent on being upset with everything you're doing.
That point exactly. So, which makes me think, in hindsight, now that you've seen, like, you're out from marriage and you're just looking at, like, what happened in the past, two things. You mentioned that there was a time that he literally drove 9 hours. Calling times.
Sometimes, wait, let me say this, because Gudaki or Makbara. There were times when it wasn't a 9-hour journey.
Okay.
There were times where it's maybe from Kaduna to Abuja, or a lot of times from Lagos to Abuja or back and forth, because I lived in Lagos and he was working in Abuja.
Okay.
It's over everything. And I think when you really want to control a person, you do your best to control a person. So that was like trying to put me in check. So I had to leave the office by a certain time. If I didn't leave, he's driving down. Yes.
To leave whatever he's doing and start coming down. And then on the phone, he said
he's calling me.
He's
calling me. And I don't want to say too much, but sometimes he's calling other people just to make sure I'm where I said I was. So there was that. And I feel, and that's why, in the video I said, you think that you're covering all these things up, but it's pretty obvious to everybody else because people could see. Now, in the last year where I was debating in my mind,
To leave or not.
Are you going to be here? Are you not going to be here? Something maybe not so wonderful, but wonderful to me happened. I discovered a lot of the Tyler Perry movies, the old ones. And for each time I was watching it, I was seeing myself and I kept thinking, this is what people can see. Because I'm not seeing it from an outside perspective. And it didn't look nice at all. And that made me feel like I don't want to be this way to myself or anybody. It's not something pretty. It's not a good way to put up a front. Like, you're managing a situation, everybody already knows it's broken down. So to me, that was, if nobody knew, maybe, I don't know, maybe I could still feel like, oh, Alipache, but to me, I was like, why am I pretending?
People can see this.
Yeah, this thing is like, it's falling apart. So
do you think that he was a hurt person? Do you
I
think
know he was. I know,
some damage
and I think that was the other reason why I managed it for the length of time, and I had people close to us help manage the situation, because I'd have conversations with my mom, like literally describing some things he had been through, and said, this is how you should say it, or this is how, because we know that it's a fragile person that we're dealing with. And it might sound weird, and I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody, but a hurt person needs love.
Yeah.
So, but then there's only so much of it you can give before you realize that this person doesn't want to heal themselves. And there was a passage in the Bible that I read that gave me a lot of clarity. The passage, I don't even know where it is, so I have Bible verses that everywhere in my head. I just know the word. It says that none of you are condemned except you condemn yourself. And it made me realize that there's no situation that can change except you decide for yourself
that you don't want change.
So I realized that was the position that he was taking. He was like, this is my past. I'm not going to move away from it. And I don't want to be part of that, because it keeps me where I don't want to be in your past with you. Like, I had to choose for myself and take responsibility for myself, for God, because I keep thinking, God gave me my own life, my own, for myself. Before he said you should join to somebody, like, what are you doing with your own life? And I realized that there's such a huge ingratitude to God to keep dangling my life in front of danger and be like, oh, because I want this person to heal, and I'm not Jesus. So like, I want this person to heal, I want this to help this person, I want this person to be past all these things that they've been through, and then it keeps you in there. And then leaving was another eye-opener for me, for my personality, because one of the arguments that we'd have all the time was like, I'm literally telling him, I know you don't love me, I don't know you don't love me. But then when I left, I realized that, Olamide, there's no way you could have loved him either. Like, you have to be honest with yourself that whatever you thought you were feeling is probably an attachment that is not love. Because if you love the next person, you don't even want them to sin against you or God or all these other beings there. So for me, I had to let go of the idea of, you have wronged me, I loved you, you did not love me. This is just clean. We didn't love each other. We were both confused. We didn't really know what we were feeling. I was trying to help you, but you're not helping. It's a lot of emotions that I feel like I'm still trying to peel off and unpack, but yeah.
Wow. What about family? Because I think the very first question I asked myself, the very first clip I saw, was where her family members? That's what I said. Because because I have sisters, and I'm thinking to myself, if it happens that first time, that guy is gone.
Okay, if you remember what I said in the beginning, it's that we all brag and we all say Kuli Jemi.
True.
We all say, I would have dealt with this a little bit differently. I would have, like I said, this is somebody we've known since Olamide was 17 years old. So this is somebody that is like, my younger brother's name is Olumide, so let me just throw his name in here for a minute. This is like Olumide in our family. It's like a member of our family. They have a problem. We want to help them. And my parents are very academic. And my parents are very good people. So the first instinct was, I'm sure my dad was like, I'm going to kill this person, because my dad probably didn't find out until we were both living in Abuja, which is after a lot of the other episodes. And then I wasn't telling anybody exactly what was happening. So you could know that Oman Olamide was not Bioshiman Olamide. So, when you think about violence in marriage, for most people, it's the occasional he slapped you, he pushed you, he's being mean to you. It was deeper than that, but nobody knew what it was. And I wasn't telling anybody.
The episodes were violent.
Yes. And I remember that I was uncomfortable even visiting my parents, because my mom would be like,
let's check.
Kilo wa sheni bi bayi, kilo sheleni bi. And I stopped going there, because it was hard for me to watch them go through that as well. And when he would flare up in front of them, I'd be like, just call him and talk to him like a son. Me, I'm not your daughter right now. I'm going to be in the other room, because I also know that because I had not decided to leave, I would still be at the brunt of
whatever
yes.
will happen.
So if you are doing bragado for him, he's coming home to do bragado for me. So I had to be sure before I would say this is exactly what happened.
So he would actually flare up in front of them as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's our parents know each other. So this is also it was a bad but delicate situation. It was delicate, and I think it continues to be delicate. Even people will say things like, "Oh, you should have him charged." It's like, my kids are still having a daddy. It's delicate, not to excuse him or anything, because I still feel like he needs help. Like, call it what it is. Somebody get this guy help. So, and it could be a spiritual intervention, it could be a mental intervention, but the solution is help. The same way you would want to punish somebody. Punishment is supposed to correct, not to damn a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. There's so much perspective about it. Okay, let's talk about the church for a minute. Lately, more than ever before, I'm beginning to see some of the, like you said, they're just very simple truths about the Bible.
Yeah.
They're very simple truths about the way that Jesus lived his life, and he wants us to live life.
And other people in the Bible.
And there's so much additions and subtractions that we now have within the church structure. And one of those things that a lot of people at church believe, because I've heard so many stories of women talking to their pastors, and the pastor will call them in and say, "You to be a good wife. You too, kiniko.
Your mom might say it to you, your auntie might say it, your divorced auntie might say it to you too. Your divorced auntie, because of violence, might say the same thing to you. So the society doesn't embrace strength from a woman, period. The moment a woman is trying to be strong, she must be doing something other than being strong. And it's in every area of her life. So if she's doing well at work, she has money, it's not her money, it must be a guy that's giving her. So we don't embrace strength in women, and it spills into the church as well, and probably spills out of the church as well.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at it from that perspective, where people are peddling, God doesn't like divorce. God does not like divorce, but he hates a murderer, he hates a liar. So how do you only preach one line out of like 15 lines? That's the part of it that I'm like, it seems like such a selective way to push the word out. In fact, if you read the whole chapter, which I don't even know where it is, that it says that a wife should submit to their husband. It's instruction to each member of the family, including the parents, the children. But the only thing we hear is submit to your husband. And my mom used to tell both of us, if you want her to submit, you have to love her. Like, because the instruction to love your wife came before the submitting. So if you're not loving your wife, you can't even expect her to submit to you. And then you go back and think, what is love? And then read that whole chapter again, and then you realize that you don't love your wife. How do you expect somebody that you're trying to control, you're trying to monitor, you're trying to analyze, you're trying to instruct like she's one small
Like a
child,
small girl.
to give you submission. So I feel like maybe also it's the way we look at it is that a lot of guys are dealing with life wrongly. Because if you're nice to me, I mean, girls are natural receivers. I would be very stupid for you, really. If there's no other way to put it. It's easy. You know, a guy that shows a woman love, the woman doesn't think about it 10 times. She's just reacting to it. She's there. In fact, she's like TV that you're just pressing a remote. And the moment you stop pressing the remote, she stops reacting to it. We're not dead in the head. You know, I mean, we can be very fickle and gullible and all that. But the same way we receive good information is the way we receive bad information. So if a man is not good to me, I mean, there's only so much I can do.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of the violence and stuff that, you know, from the videos that you talked about. But were there ever good times? Do you ever remember good times?
There were and there weren't. It's bad to say that there were not any good times at all, because I mean there was very sane moments in my house, but there was always a disconnection, and whenever there was a connection, it was always confusing. For someone who can be very affectionate, swinging to this extreme a few days later, it messes with my mind. Yeah. And I mean, in the beginning, you want to hold on to, oh, he have such a good life, he's affectionate, all the things that you can imagine a man would be. Helps out with the kids, he's thinking about everything that you're not really thinking about in terms of even my relationship with my brothers and my sisters. Somebody is helping me to say, have you called them? Have you not called them? What did you say when you called them? Which is why I said it's confusing, because a lot of that interaction was kind of like a preparation to gain some type of hold and control. It's a different form of control. Why do you want to know what I said to my sister or my friend? Like, you want to know everything. So it wasn't until I was really looking back and I was thinking about some of the things that were quote unquote just very nice, that I just felt like this might have just been part of the plan. So I still struggle with this type of personality. They're very premeditated, or they know they have a plan. You know, it's why I always tell people that when you're a certain type of person, strong woman who I don't really need human interaction. So my family knows that about me, where I don't have to call you every day for you to know that I love you type thing. You know how an abuser can take advantage of that. So watching to see, what are you saying to your sister? Are you guys having this kind of conversations? Obviously, if you slap me 2 weeks ago, and I've spoken to my sister 10 times since then, and I didn't mention it to her, you already know. Do you get what I mean? And my sister won't pretend that she didn't know. So you would know that I didn't tell her. That just solidifies your, I can do it again, because she's not telling anybody. And that's just being a bit strong and saying, I don't want this bad thing to define our marriage. I wanted to move on with us, which is, let's go back to all the traditional prayers that they pray for you on your wedding day. They hold in Yoruba.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
You guys should be friends. You guys should not involve third party in your issues. You guys should keep things between yourselves. Those are the instructions that I was hell bent on following. I wanted to have a good marriage. So when you are now involving third and fourth and fifth and sixth party, and it just, to me, just didn't seem like the adult thing to do. The adult thing to do was to get married and follow the adult instruction to keep your marriage between you and your husband. I mean, one of the first things they say, even in church, is that a man would leave his family and cleave unto his wife. And they become one. So where did the other 55 people enter the matter? And you become, I mean, because you want to be obedient to the spirit of marriage, you are putting yourself more and more into danger. So, and that's why I say it's confusing. Like, who do you listen to? Do you listen to what the church is saying? Do you listen to what your friends are saying? Do you listen to what the Olamide in primary 3 or in SS3 or in uni is saying to you? Or even what he is saying? Because in the in-betweens, there's a lot of I love you, not a lot of I'm sorries. And I would literally almost just say thank you because I knew that you're just saying it. It didn't feel like love to me. So there were times where it's more, I have a problem. This is a problem for me. I cannot handle my emotions. We will pray about it. But then it will happen again. So to me, it was just like we're struggling through something. It's like someone who's looking for money. You go from one job interview to the other to the other. You're not really thinking that the person is just going outside and waiting at the bus stop and coming home and saying, "Me, Risha." So to me, I didn't see that other part until maybe 5-6 years into the marriage, where I realized that he's not really trying to change. He's telling me he's changing, but he's not acting it. So you have to decide who you want to listen to. So there's this man with his words and this man with his actions, and they're totally opposite people.
Ooh, okay.
It's a lot.
It's just so much.
Yeah.
So the church's perspective, I know that, it was something that we discussed even before coming here. What do you think is missing in church?
I think the diversity in preaching is missing.
Okay.
You can't instruct the wife all the time without instructing the husband. You can't instruct people how to conduct themselves in a place of work. Because we hear a lot of that success-driven principles being preached in church where there's no real home principles. And when you preach home principles, you're facing her. And you're telling her, I've heard a preaching where the guy used a family as an example about a woman who, whatever she makes, she goes and kneels down in front of her husband and in a submissive spirit says, this is what I have. Yes. So she goes home. A preacher is preaching to exemplify submission and says, because I respect you as my husband, this is the money that I have from my trade or my salary. And kind of like, now, if the man is respectable, he too should hear a certain preaching, which should say that pray for your wife's money and let her go and be wise on how to spend it, not take it and then lord it over her. So when you give people half the word, they don't really know what to do with it. You can't read from like 10 years ago. I literally can't read a verse in the Bible. I have to read the whole chapter. I want to know what they said before and after because I'm not satisfied with just...
You have to read it in context.
Yes, like what is it really saying? Even when I was leaving or when I had left and all the uncles and aunties would come to me and talk to me and some people would literally pass me Bible passages. I was Googling it. Like, who wrote Colossians? What happened then? What context was this preaching or this thing? What was it? What's the behind story? And that gave me a lot of clarity. And it also made me realize that most people who are students of the Christian church, they're not doing their homework. So you go to church on Sunday, and that's where it ends. And I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but 3 hours or 2 hours a week cannot be enough to guide you the remaining times. You need constant, and I'm not talking about excessive Bible study or prayer meeting and all that. It's what are you doing? I went to college in America, and for every hour, it's on there. For every hour you spend in class, you're supposed to be spending 3 hours in research outside of class. That's what you do for yourself. You don't have to do homework with other people. It's for your own build-up. It's to see how do you see what this truth is. I was obsessive. Everywhere the word divorce is in the Bible, I read it. because I wanted to be clear. Because I remember there was a time I think I was pregnant with my last son, and I was like, I'm divorcing. I cannot do this again. And I stood in front of the TV, and Pastor Bibo Odukoya, that's her name, was preaching, and it was doing divorce. And I just thought, oh, this is sign from God. That was my sign from God.
Wow.
Honestly, this was in 2006 or 2006. And that was my sign from God, like,
That means I shouldn't
that means I
divorce.
shouldn't go. And so if something else happened beyond that, but I've told God I'm going to listen to this preaching. So you're not finding your own connection, your own relationship with God. You're basing it on somebody else's relationship. And we all are different children of God. So I have 3 boys. I always say my kids are different from each other. Even when they advocate that I treat them the same way, I keep telling them that your personality is different from this other personality. So I can't handle you the way I would handle him. You might be able to take it and he can't. So I, as a parent, I'm supposed to identify how to best handle him so he can grow and be a functional human being. If we're handled all the same way, how do you nourish your strengths? How do you even tell a child, don't do this, and they actually listen to you?
Makes sense.
So I just feel like we just need to broaden and expand on it ourselves, and maybe also not just put the weight on the church to preach it to us.
We need to
do our own learnings about what spirituality means for us. It cannot be, I don't believe that God puts the responsibility of my life into somebody else's hands. I feel like God is too great to do that. Like, it can't be that if
he can do
pastor did
himself.
not pray for me or pastor did not talk to me, then I'm not okay. The same way I don't believe in jazz anymore is because I'm like, that means I can take your life and do as I want with it. Why would God give another human being power over all others? It doesn't make sense to me. And if he gave one person power, it means that the power is in me too. So
well.
I might be able to do and undo. So I don't believe that's the phenomenon that should be peddled. Even in church now, you find that people are praying against strong man here, strong woman here, because we're giving power to that thing. It's almost like you're saying that your God is not strong enough against that. You see Nigerian movies also. No, let's be honest now.
True.
Nigerian movies, I've watched some movies where the Oshorungari
I like it.
would win.
Yeah.
And it's like, where is God in this movie? Like,
It's not possible.
It's not possible. I don't believe anymore that somebody out there
Can have more.
Yeah, and I remember being in primary 2, so I remember the weirdest things. And there was one principal or a teacher that said that he is in you is greater than he that is in the world. And I remember thinking about it, and it's like something is inside me that is greater than the whole world. Like that.
That's all I need.
That's all I need. Like, not greater than Lagos, the entire world. And then somebody else can now have power over that.
No,
I don't think it's possible. I doubt it with my whole life. Yeah.
That's a great thing about. So, like I was asking off camera, if you had a friend or if you knew someone, because I like that you like to differentiate that there is abuse, but there is what you went through. Different. If you had a friend who went through what you went through, what would you, or who is going through rather what you went through, what would you say to them?
It's not worth staying for. And there's no hope. Like, it might sound like damning, and if there is any type of hope, please find it outside. Leave.
Not in.
Don't do it while you're in there. Going back to the first question, or one of the first questions you asked me is like, why did I stay for so long? I moved out a lot.
Yeah, that.
So I left a lot of times. I went back because I was being how do I put it? I was being a Nigerian thinker. Like, people would say that I'm now divorced. The stigma is there.
What would people say? How would I?
So I would tell anybody going through anything I'm going through, even similar. If you think you have to go, leave. Even if it's just to save your mental state of mind.
Yes.
Leave. There is no stigma. The shame is not on me. I didn't slap myself.
Exactly.
I didn't beat myself. There's no way I thought as a child that, Lord, give me a man that's going to hit me 3 or 4 times a day. It's not my fault. But it's my fault if I accept it.
And
if I think that this is the way of life that I deserve. I don't deserve even this. I remember that there's no WhatsApp. But there was this BlackBerry message that was passing around about 10 different things that, a man could do, cheese, blah, 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 blah. And I think 9 out of 10, I thought, they me bad, bro. And I just kept thinking about it. After I left that, I wouldn't even settle for someone who had 1 out of the 10.
Nice.
So if there's something that anybody is going through, you can't even have the right perspective while you're there.
Because you can't see clearly.
You can't see it the way you should be seeing it. It took me, honestly, Tyler Perry movies to see
that this is
a perspective of this is me. And it shocked me because I always thought I was strong and put together, and I thought I was a happy person. I really thought I was good. I thought I have this one thing that's not going right with my life.
But everything else is fine.
But everything else is... Yeah, so we can't all have it perfect. That was one of my thinking.
Wow.
Because I couldn't see clearly. So it's taking me... Even sometimes, I don't know how bad it looks to people. The reaction from the videos were something that showed me really, really bad. Okay, this was not normal.
This is not normal.
But I honestly just thought, okay, I've left. It was just an abusive relationship. But you've watched these things in the movies where somebody ends up dead.
One thing you said that I thought was so true at the end, you said you're grateful for your life because when you look back at the situation, you realize that every single episode you could have died.
Yeah. My mom, I remember my mom talking to us at some point in time, and we all pushed certain things in our heads. And my mom said, I was raised non-violent, so I don't understand it. I wasn't spanked as a child, which is another thing he would say, is that because I was not spanked as a child, me really more call me or taught me or whatnot. But I was a good child. My sister was spanked too, but I saw everybody in front of me get spanked, so I was a perfect child. Whatever mommy wanted, I did it. Whatever daddy wanted us to do, I did it. I was my life was like the good girl. I was a good child. And she said one of the reasons why she doesn't advocate even hitting house help is, so what if that person has a vein about to burst in their head and you hit them? It will become your fault.
Wow.
So, but this is to say, even to the guy who is going through anything, I want to say walk away. But I want to even say to the guys as well as the girls, walk away from the marriage. If it's not...
Yeah, because there are some men
if she's not what you want, rather than put your angst and your pain on her in any form whatsoever, just leave. We're raised to be cowardly as adults. It's what I'm finding now. Adults are cowards. So you can't live a bad relationship because you don't want to hurt the person's feelings, or you feel like, you have 10 children with them, or 15 degrees that they helped you pay for. Just leave. Don't cheat on her, deprive her of money, tell her she can't go out to be with her friends, all for the sake of this is the way Nigerian life is. Just leave. There's too much of an emphasis on that. You have to put up a front. A lot of roommates in Nigeria are forming marriage.
A lot of roommates forming marriage.
Yes. I will tell you that one for free. Wow. There are lots of them who are they're just
kind of living together, not
it's
married.
Not worth it.
What would you say is the role of the man? Because there's, speaking of feminist movement now, Then there's the church that's, I guess a lot of people think is anti-feminist. What do you think is the actual role of a woman, and what do you think is the role of a man in the context of marriage?
Let me say man and woman first.
Okay.
I think that a man and a woman comes together to drive a simple life. And I say simple, and you guys have agreed this is the life that we want to live
Together.
And this preaching is in my head and has always been in my head, and I didn't understand it for a long time until I researched. Two shall not be unequally yoked. And it didn't occur to me. I think I was in some class in university, that I heard the word yoke again. And we were talking about probably agriculture or something, about cattle being yoked. And I thought, yoke, I've heard this word before. What does a yoke mean? Actually, a yoke is something that you put on two different animals
To link them together.
To link them together so that they can plow the land. That was what it is. And if you research, 125-pound cow must be linked to a 125-pound cow, which is the same principle as in wrestling. You can't fight someone who weighs more than you.
So it has to be equal.
It has to be equal.
Makes sense.
Why is it equal? Is because if one cow is heavier than the other cow, the lighter cow is going to slow the other one down. So to me, it's compatibility. We are going forward with the same rigor, the same interest, the same values towards plowing the land.
So you talked about what a man and a woman ought to do in a marriage, the roles in a marriage. But what do you think is a compromise? Because you hear a lot of people talk about compromise in marriage. So they say, when you get married, you find that there's certain things that you have to compromise on, Where do you think that comes in?
This is not a nice question for me. Okay. I'm quite strict with my relationships now. So I think the way that I analyze it is compromise only from your standpoint. If you're in a relationship with anybody, it could be your mom, your sister, a friend, whatever the relationships are, it's come to teach love. So if you're not going to be a loving person or learn how to be a loving person, with that in mind, not having control over the other person or lording your own expectations over them, I would say compromise just within yourself. It's what can I compromise, not my expectations of other people. So let me put it this way. I come home late from work every day and I expect him to be okay with it. Rather than what can I do to make him okay with it? Or what can I do to make sure I'm not coming home late every day type thing. So it's always inwards. Yeah, okay. Because if you're not strict about that, then I would say that then you're just projecting. And there's no place for projecting because it just means you're okay with receiving love and you don't want to give it. And that's what relationships are nowadays. Is like we're feeding on this drug called love and we just want more of it and we want more of it. And if, say, Banjo is not giving me or Bisi is not giving me, then I'm going to have to go to Kemi for it. And once Kemi seems like Kemi's not giving it to me, then I'm going to Bosede for it. Instead of how do I give it? So we need to come away from what we expect other people to do for us or do to make us feel whole rather than be whole for the other person. So I'd say that compromising is not necessarily something you take from people, something you give people. Yeah.
So my last question, I'm going to wrap everything in one, is there is the aftermath of all of this that people don't really see. So there's two sides. There's people that are happy because you finally left her. She has peace of mind now. There's people who are like, why don't you just, now she's divorced and the social stigma. But all of that aside, for yourself, you've left now. It's been 7 years since. Forgiving him, forgiving everything that happened so that you can be truly free.
Yeah.
How have you been able to do that? What's the process like with that? And then how has that helped you? Because you talked about relationships now being strict. Has it shaped the way that you see people now? Yeah. Do you feel like if you were to get into another relationship that you might be a bit, like you said, stricter. What's that shift like?
Okay. I hope this answer is not going to be too long. I think the first thing is forgiving. Um, you come away from this kind of relationship first hurt and relieved at the same time. I'm glad I'm now out. But then there's a lot of, I think for me, it might not happen to everybody. There was resistance, like, no, you guys can't break up. No, we're apologetic. Let's talk to somebody. You guys try and make it work. So we went from that to it can't work. And other things I feel like happen to incite some level of anger. And for me, I looked at it as I just had to give it to God. This is something I couldn't control. I used to tell my mom something like, how do I pray to God to punish this person? Because I'm thinking that if I'm God, I will do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And I don't want to even be responsible for that happening to somebody else. How do I pray that prayer? I can't. So I just gave it to God and I said, you know what, God? I'm tired of thinking about this thing. Help me deal with it. Deal with him the way you like, as you would like, and do whatever you want. But for me, make me think about the things I want for myself and help me to be focused, that I'm not doing it because I left him or because he's now there looking at me from the outside. I wanted to own my intentions myself. Does that make sense? Yeah. I wanted to be successful, not because now that I am how do I put it? Now that I'm divorced or free, let them know that I'm successful. I just want to be successful for myself. I just wanted to be happy for myself. I just wanted to be free for myself, because I feel like I need to enjoy my life. Going to the second question, which you have to remind me, my mind is blank.
So just thinking about, how you now see other people, especially if you're going to get another relationship, what would that look like for you, having been through that?
Just because I always try to go inward, I would say that would be my journey to see it for what it is and not rush into things. So I've met a lot of people who are single. Single, not from divorce or anything, but maybe they're my age, they haven't gotten married, or even way younger. The pressures of getting married at 25 is real. And I would tell them, don't compromise yourself. So there's a preaching that I don't know if it's valid to preach now. I don't believe in, how do I put it? The way the church would preach it is no sex before marriage. But it's not every relationship that necessarily leads to marriage. But I don't believe in having sex with somebody before you should. And the one thing that solidified it for me was Think Like a Man, the movie. The rule, you have to have a rule, because those things might be the confusing factor. So if you wait to see who this person really is, not the way you have painted them to be. That's why I said I'm very strict. I'm strict on myself to really see the person. I don't want it to be like, oh, it seems like he's tall and nice. No.
That's not what we're
That's not, yes. Does this person have my values? And you can hear it if you shut up. So I keep quiet around a lot of people because I want to hear them. I listen to my own voice in my head all the time. So I want to hear what they're saying. I want to really be clear to say, why did that person say this? Or what's their value system around what they've said? You can tell if somebody makes a snide remark around you about something. And most of the time, we're not listening to it. So I listen more. I'm quiet a lot because I really, really want to analyze what that person is doing. Work ethic is something huge for me as well, because there's the devil is very active in an idle mind, honestly. So if somebody who is not as busy or as driven,
don't come around me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Olamide.
Thank you.
Gosh, so much wisdom, actually.
Oh, thank you.
So much wisdom. Thank you. I don't even know what to say in summary. What I'm going to say is, okay, actually, I should say this, just so we don't confuse people. In case you're watching what videos we keep referencing, there's a 4-part series, a four-part video on YouTube by the Dang Network, where Olamide shared in detail some of the experiences that she had while she was in. Yes, some details of the experiences she had while she was in an abusive 7-year marriage. So, just in case you're wondering, you can watch that too, just to get some context. But Olamide, thank you so much. You're very strong. You are strong. You may not realize the full scope of it.
Yeah.
But you're truly strong.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.